Hey everyone, great to have you here. Thank you for joining me. If you're watching this video, then you are in for something special. You're here as part of the Balance Riding Course workshop. And we started the workshop, we opened it with part 1 of the training just this morning. But I wanted to do a bit more to be able to engage with you, to hear your feedback, to answer your questions, and also to give you some additional exercises to really make sure that you're able to apply what you're learning in the workshop. So it's one of the things that's always really important for me when I teach, and especially teaching riding. So many times it can be conceptual, especially this way, where you're watching videos, you watch the video, you watch someone demonstrate something or talk about something, but then the next time that you're actually in the saddle and you try to apply it, it's a lot more difficult. And you think, what exactly were they talking about? Is this where I'm supposed to be sitting? Is this what I'm supposed to be feeling? And I want to help you overcome that hurdle in your learning, so that when you are going through this workshop, and if you continue on in my Balance Riding course, you're not just getting the conceptual learning, but you're also really getting the feeling of what I want to help you understand. So today we're going to be doing an exercise together to improve the seat. And this is for all levels of riders, even if you're just starting out or if you're experienced, but you're back here to really improve your foundation of riding, and all disciplines too, because regardless of whether we're sitting in a dressage saddle, in a Western saddle, and a trail saddle, any kind of discipline, we still have to have the basic foundation of alignment in our body and of being able to follow effectively the movement of the horse. So thank you for everyone that's jumping on. Just so that I know before we get into the meat of the content here, that you're able to hear me and see me okay, and mostly hear me okay. We've got some background noise. It's a little bit windy where I'm at. So if you could just leave a comment if you're watching. Let me know first where you're tuning in from and also what discipline you ride. That would be amazing. And if anyone is tuning in here and is not yet a part of the workshop, you can access the link in any of the last few posts, also by clicking on the cover photo. You'll find a link to the workshop. And once we finish here, I'll put it down in the comments too. But the workshop training, each day, there's 3 days. We have today, we have another part coming out on Wednesday of this week, another part on Friday. And each part is going to have the main video training, and then it has a PDF worksheet that you can download and have as a reference as well. Because after the video training will come down after the workshop ends, but you can continue with those PDFs as a reference, as a little touch point and reminder. And also, I would love to have you continue and join me in the full Balance Riding course, where you'll have full access to the workshop. And of course, we'll be going into much deeper study together. Amazing. So we've got some more people coming in. We've got Christina that does hunt seat and dressage. Some of the comments go by real quickly. Anyone else tuning in, just let me know where you're coming from and what discipline you ride, so I can see who we've got on here today. And then for all of the videos, so I'll be in here each week, or each day this week, same time at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And make sure that as you're watching, if you can follow along. So I'm going to do all of these videos somewhere where you can follow along. Like, I'm not going to actually do the demo on a horse, because I want you to really be engaged and to do this along with me. So right now I'm just in a chair. So grab a chair if you've got one, get seated, put your phone somewhere, your computer somewhere where you can see. And today we're going to go through an exercise to better understand your pelvis and the position of your pelvis for riding. So this is one of the areas where I find there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of kind of miscommunication that can happen between riding instructors and how riders interpret that instruction and what they actually end up doing with their body. So for example, there's instructions like sit deep. Some people interpret this as leaning back more in the saddle. Some people interpret this as opening the legs and trying to sink their weight lower. Other terms that get misinterpreted are things like put your leg on the horse. A lot of riders then interpret this as I need to squeeze in with my thighs and really squeeze my legs against the horse. If you think of any others, feel free and put them in the comments here. Other riding instruction that gets misinterpreted is to sit up tall. A lot of riders then interpret this one with arching or hollowing the lower back and stretching up. Sometimes the instruction is given. I was just talking with one of our students in the workshop this morning via text, and she was saying, well, I'm often told to think of a string pulling me up. So the string, oh, Harriet, thank you for the update. We've got audio at like 25. Okay, good to know. I will do some testing with some other equipment for the next time. For today, I'll move in a little closer and I'll try to speak a little louder for you. A lot of riders are told about the string pulling up. And the challenge with the string is some riders interpret that as just lightening the body. Some riders interpret the string as, again, then pulling up with the body and raising the center of gravity. So there's so many different instructions and so many different ways that it can be interpreted. What I want you to do today is really get the feeling of what it feels like to be balanced on your sit bones, and we're going to talk about specifically how to lengthen the lower back. This is a really important movement for riding, and it's something, again, that often is misunderstood. Okay, so, all right, we got a little bit of skipping out here. We'll see what the recording ends up like. And thank you, everyone that's still tuning in. We've got Jane as a trail rider. I know we've got others. So you're watching, you can browse the comments. It's always fun to see where everyone is coming from. All right, so here's where we're gonna start today for the guided part of the exercise. I want you to start by feeling your pelvis. Like literally take your hands, all right, and put your hands around your pelvis. And I'm gonna scoot my chair back a little bit so that you can see better. So I want you to start feeling the top of your pelvis. A lot of times, kind of in English language, we refer to this as the hips, you know, the hips being the top here. This is really the top of the pelvis, and our hip, if we think about the hip joint, like the actual joint, is where the femur comes into the pelvis. Okay, so if you're feeling around here, you're feeling your pelvis, you're feeling along the sides, which are this big wing. They create kind of the point that you can feel or sometimes see depending on your conformation from the front. And now if you just start to move one leg a bit, lift your knee up, take it out to the side, set it back down. Where that movement is occurring is the hip joint. Okay, so now I want you to explore a little bit with just take your body forward and take your body back. Okay, just rock back and forth a few times. And now I want you to notice, where are you moving? When you go back and forth, are you moving your spine? Are you moving your pelvis? Are you moving your chest? And just see if you can quiet all of the other movement and just start to move your pelvis around your hip joint. So your legs are staying relatively still. Your upper body is just following this rocking movement. Your spine is relatively stable. And we're just starting to rock back and forth on the sit bones. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit more exploration. Okay, we're going to get a little more up close and personal. I want you to put one hand under your sit bones. So now we're actually, let's do both hands. It's a little more comfortable, a little more even. Okay, so now you're sitting on your hands. All right, now rock back and forth really slowly, because this can be a bit uncomfortable. But I want you to feel now your sit bones, and feel how as you go forward, you kind of lose the feeling of your sit bones. Also, if you go back, now you're sitting more on the fleshy muscles, the glute muscles, and you're gonna lose them going back as well. Okay, so now you're finding your sit bones on your hands, which is a little uncomfortable. So now take your hands out. And now go back to rocking, but feeling not just how you're rocking the pelvis back and forth around the hip joint, around your femur coming in, but also how you're rocking back and forth on your sit bones. Okay, so now we've found the hip joints, we've found the sit bones. Now we're going to get up close and personal again. Now I want you to take your hands in the front. Okay, so you found your sit bones in the back, and if you track forward, you can feel where the pelvis comes in and comes to the pubic bone in the front. Okay, so you can track in here, feeling the pelvis. You can track down the front, kind of down the seam of your pants, and that's the pubic bone. So if you have read in some books or you've heard about a 3-point seat, the 3-point seat refers to when the saddle fits the rider really well and actually gives 3 points of contact. 1 and 2 from the sit bones, and the third from the rise in the front being just right, that you actually have a 3rd point of contact with the pubic bone in the front. We don't want to go searching for a 3-point seat if the saddle does not provide for it, because that's going to end up tipping you too far forward. Okay, but if you notice in your saddle that you feel 3 points of contact, it may be that your saddle fits you well enough that it gives you that 3-point seat. Okay, so we've found the hip joint, we've found the seat bones, we've found the pubic bone in the front. We're understanding that the 3-point seat is just if the saddle fits. So where do we want to actually be, and what's this idea of lengthening the lower back? So many times when riders are first riding, whether it's just from an automatic response of a bit of tension and nervousness, of leaning forward because of a tense position. Humans, when we tense up, we tend to want to close the hip angle and lean forward. So we're kind of doing this motion. It can also be what is taught to riders as bring your shoulders back, push your heels down, keep your chest out, and we end up with having too much curve in the lower back. Okay, so you hear as a rider, I don't want to have all this curve. I need to flatten that curve. And then we're also told often as riders, tighten your core. So many people then end up doing a pelvic tilt of sorts. So they tighten the core in order to pull the front of the pelvis up. That takes out the curve in the lower back, but it adds so much tension. This is one of the most misunderstood things also that's being taught right now, is this idea of needing to be really tight in the core. Because when we tighten our core, and this is an extra bonus exercise that you can do with someone the next time you're riding, tighten up your core, have the reins, have someone in front of you and just ask them to pull on your reins and see how stable you are. When we tighten here, we tighten so much of our body, we put tension on so many of the joints that we lose our ability to move and flow easily with the horse. Okay, so we don't want to tighten here to tilt the pelvis to take out this hollow of the back. Instead, we were just practicing earlier moving around the hip joints. Now what we can do is we can feel, now I want you to put your hands back on the top of the pelvis and just feel taking the top of the pelvis forward. Okay, that puts a little more hollow in your back, right? So now we're leaving our upper body stable, taking the top of the pelvis forward. Now do the opposite. Take the top of the pelvis back. Okay, now did you feel how you can do that? You can move your pelvis and you can use your hands here without needing to tighten your core. Do that a few times. Okay, and again, this is different. In the beginning, we felt the hip joints just by rocking back and forth feeling the hip joints, feeling the seat bones. Now we're leaving the upper body stable, and we're just rocking the pelvis, top of the pelvis forward, top of the pelvis back. Notice how as the top of the pelvis comes forward, you've got more arch or more hollow in the back. As the top of the pelvis comes back, you have less. But you don't have to tighten your core in order to make this movement. So now what I want you to find is the position that is balanced and comfortable for you. All right, so where you're both even on your sit bones from rocking back and forth, and where you can let the top of the pelvis just come back enough to where you have a flat lower back. So sitting in a chair, sitting on a flat surface, you should feel really stable in this position. You should feel like if someone was to push you from the side or push you from the back, that you would be pretty stable. If you start to tip forward, notice if you feel less stable, less grounded, less aligned. Same if you start to roll too far back. Okay, so our riding seat is that we're balanced over our sit bones, that we have a 3-point seat feeling the pubic bone only if the saddle fits us in a way that allows for that, that we're balanced on the sit bones, and that the reason that I had you take the top of the pelvis slightly back is that allowed your lower back to lengthen. We didn't go all the way back here where you would feel then you rolled back to the muscles of the glutes. We stayed on the sit bones, but just slightly rocked back from the top of the pelvis so that you could be really stable. Okay, so this is the foundation of everything because our pelvis is the largest bone in the human body. It weighs a lot. Our center of gravity is basically just above the pelvis. It's usually about right behind where your belly button is. And the more that we can lower our center of gravity on the horse, the better that we're going to be able to stay balanced and stay really stable. So riding is about finding an aligned position and then being able to move fluidly. And that ability to move fluidly comes from first that aligned position that we're able to sit without a lot of tension. So as I mentioned earlier, as soon as we start putting tension in joints, we can't flow, we can't move as well. All right, so this was your exercise for today. We went through, we felt the pelvis, you got a bit more close with your pelvis, what your pelvis feels like, what the different parts of it are. We explored with finding how you can lengthen your lower back. You can take that extra arch out of your lower back by taking the top of the pelvis back and finding a more aligned position. And this is where all of the other postural things can build on this. For example, if I have a rider come and they want to work on their contact, holding the reins, having a better feel of the horse's mouth, I always start here. As one of my mentors, Wendy Murdoch, says, good hands come from good hips. So our contact and really all of our riding ability and skill comes first from really having that seat, which is the position of the alignment of the pelvis, and then being able to move from there. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions as you're going through the workshop, feel free to put them here. I will be checking and responding in the comments. Feel free to put them under the comments of the workshop videos. And as we continue through the days, I'll collect those comments and I'll bring as many as I can to these live videos to answer more in depth here as well, and also take you through a new guided exercise in each of these live videos. So come back here to the HorseClass Facebook page tomorrow, same time, and I will guide you through the next exercise. Also, again, if you're not part of the workshop, make sure you join us. You can click on the cover photo above. I'll put the link on as soon as I hop off here. And thank you so much for being here and being part of our community.